Welcome to the Word of the Week. This is Suicide Prevention Month, and I'm so thankful that I get to go around the world and help military leaders, help professionals understand how to get the suicide epidemic under control. Because honestly, it seems like we haven't figured it out yet. You know, if we would have figured it out already with the methods that we currently use, there would be no suicide epidemic. But there's something that I applied to my life when I went through tragedy that I think could help a lot of people. And the truth is, not a lot of people want to know about this method. And the thing is, it is the primary source. It is a source to snuff out suicide. And the answer is Jesus. The answer is Jesus. And this is not just John Arroyo's answer. You know, the military has told us for years that the spiritual component, the spiritual readiness component, is a thing that helps us during times of stress, tragedy, and hardship. Friends, I don't know if you know that, but I've written a curriculum. It's called Finding Resilience in Today's World, Being Intentional About Self-Care. In there, I bring out language that the military use. This is not my language. I didn't just make it up. What I did is I went to their doctrine, and specifically I went to the Army's doctrine, to their Health to Fitness program. And in their Health to Fitness program, it says that there's 5 domains to the wholeness, to the resilience of a U.S. Army soldier. The Air Force, they have 4 domains. So the military has been saying this. It's just everybody puts their own verbiage and spin on it. But what the Army says, and I'm going to read it to you quickly, the spiritual readiness pillar. The development of personal qualities needed to sustain a person in times of stress, hardship, and tragedy. Friends, this is what the military has been saying to us, but no one ever uses that domain. We use every other domain, but rarely do we use the spiritual domain. So, commanders and leaders, understand this. If I have a vehicle and it requires hydraulic fluid, am I going to put engine oil where the hydraulic fluid goes? You know, I was just with the Air Force just recently. So think about those aircraft that require hydraulic fluid. If I were to go in there and put engine oil in an aircraft that requires hydraulic fluid in certain components, I guarantee that the commanders and leaders and mechanics, they would scratch their head and they would say, do we continue to have this issue? Our aircraft are deadline. They're not flying properly. As a matter of fact, we can't even get them off the ground. Friends, that's no different with what's happening with our soldiers, with people around the world. It's not just service members. Suicide has crept into our public schools. Why? Because people have lost hope. And how do we, as leaders, how do we help them? Friends, Jesus is the answer. The military has told us again that there's a spiritual component. The spiritual readiness component is what helps you during stress, tragedy, and hardship. Friends, in my life, I applied Jesus. And Jesus is why this guy's not dead after being shot in the throat and left for dead. This is why, because I applied the component that the military told me is what works during stress, tragedy, and hardship. So what I did is I put the right fluid in the right component. But for years, we've been using all these other means to help somebody because, well, we're not a spiritual entity. That's just not who we are. Well, then why is it in your doctrine? Then take it out of your doctrine. I'm not telling you this. I'm just telling you this is what the military has been telling us, and we've been putting the wrong fluid in the wrong components and wondering why all of our equipment is deadlined, why our soldiers are deadlined, why our children are deadlined, because we're using the wrong components, we're using the wrong fluids, we're using the wrong source to bring hope and healing. Friends, Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the answer. I go around the world and I share my story and I show them. I don't only tell them, I show them. What am I showing them? Look at that guy right there. Gangs, war, wounded, redeemed. How did he get there? because he put the right fluid in the right component. He put the right source in the right component. The military's been telling us for years. But because the military's not typically a spiritual entity, they try to go at it with the wrong means or a different set of means. Friends, I'm telling you, for those of you that are commanders and leaders, invite your chaplain into your formation. You don't have to be the spiritual leader. You have one. The military's identified that there's a spiritual component, so they have the chaplain corps. Invite them into your formation and let them be the chaplain. Let them talk with your soldiers. If your soldiers are not interested, they'll say no. But friends, I tell you, we've been trying to get a hold of this suicide epidemic, and it's never gonna happen. You're never gonna get a hold of it. You're never gonna get a hold of it or on top of it because you're using the wrong source. You're putting the wrong fluid in the wrong source. Jesus is the answer. All right, this is the word of the week. It's Suicide Prevention Month. Let's start using the right source. See you soon.